Yeah, I every day. But it's not bad. After this, I'm gonna observe someone and then pretty much done. Yeah, most faculty don't work on Friday. Usually they schedule meetings or something on Friday. It's not bad. Okay, so we are going to use Server 2022. I have a lot of students asking for Server VM because they might have missed class or whatnot. So you can see now that if you miss Lab 5, you can also use Server 2022. You would see that there's not a huge difference in the version from 2019 to 2022. They also have a 2024 version, but we are going to use a 2022. I think most businesses are still at this version for their servers. So you can add that to your resume that you know how to configure DNS, DHCP, or install and configure those services. Okay. So hopefully after this lab, you would know how that's done on Microsoft Server. I know that we did DHCP in the past, so we're not going to focus too much on the scope for DHCP. We're going to focus on DNS and your ADDS today. So you can download from the website, but there's also a drive that has the zip folder. Just make sure I have it on my desktop. Okay, I'll show you real quick. Just make sure that you extract it. And you can just use Windows extract tool. So you would right click after you download and select extract all. And that's going to give you another folder, okay, which is what you want to access when you, and inside it, I think I have also Server 2022. So there are multiple versions of it in case you need it. So what I did was I shared my Google Drive. The virtual machine is on there and it is zipped. So make sure that once you download it, go to your downloads folder, and I have it on my desktop, and then right click, extract all, and that should allow you to extract it. Okay. Once you have it extracted, you would have another folder, same exact name, but no zip symbol. And you are going to open up VirtualBox. I'm going to remove my server there so that way I can re-add it for you. So in the next step, after you extract your virtual machine, you are going to open up your VirtualBox app and then you are going to click add. And I have it on my desktop, but you might have it on your download. So navigate to where you extracted the folder. So I'm going to go to the folder that I extracted, which is this one right here. And it's subfolder, and you would find Server 2022. And we're going to load the blue file, which is the VBox file. Before I start it, what I want is I want to be able to configure or check my memory and my processor. So we are going to go to settings, and you can see the summary that it shows 8,000 megabyte, and you can click on processor tab and it should be at quad core. So when I created it, I already set it up for you there, but you can also view that here. Okay. So once you already have the RAM that you need and the processor that you need, you can give it more if you want to adjust it before you start. Then you would launch the VM. The first thing that we need to do on the server is to make sure that we set up the IP address for it. Okay. Just like what you've done when you did your DHCP server, you configure your DHCP server a few weeks back. Now, you might experience some lag between inside the virtual machine, but it should be a little quicker than your server 2019. So once your server is booted, after you start launching your VM, which is step 9, you need to click input at the top, keyboard, and then you need to select insert Control-Alt-Delete. Because if you press Control-Alt-Delete regularly on your keyboard, it will just access the whole system. So we're gonna, once your virtual machine boots, click input, keyboard, and insert Control-Alt-Delete. This allows you to access the administrator account. Keep in mind that this is a local administrator account for that server 2022. Later on, after you promote your domain, you are going to see a different administrator account. That account is going to be your domain administrator account, because once you promote your system to become a domain controller, it's going to have a path of your domain in front of your user account. So once I get here, I'm going to log in. CIS-40A. Yeah, it's a little slow at the beginning, so give it some time.
The power no is slow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just initially it's just using resources, and then it's trying to configure all the drivers for you too. So okay. So once we are here, if you see this message, you can just close this. They're just saying that if you manage your server, you would use the server manager or the Windows Admin Center. So we can close this prompt. Now, what we're going to do is on the server manager, you are going to click local server on the left, and you are going to see if there's an IP link. Let me see. So let's read this. Yeah, you're using the zip folder, so we need to extract it. You see the zip folder, and then it's gonna make a second folder, which is right here, and you're gonna navigate to that one to load. Okay, so just give it 2 minutes. Yeah, usually when it's aborted, if it's compressed, because the file header is not accessible for it. Okay. So on the left, we're gonna click the local server. And you've done this before, so always start with the static IP address, right? What we're gonna do is once we click the local server, you're gonna see this Ethernet, and there's a link. So you're gonna click that, which allows you to access the Ethernet properties. So right click, go to properties. So here, right, I'm at SEP 13. And then you're going to select TCP IP version 4. So we want to select that, step 14. And we want to click properties. We would select use the following IP address. Now here you can type in the value for X between 50 to 100. You can use 75, you can use 82, whatever you desire for your X, okay? Now, when it's connected to the network, just know that you cannot have the same IP addresses for multiple systems. So we want to make sure that the host octet is unique, right? As we learned to subnet before. So what you're going to do is you are going to put in your IP address 172.16.0 and then choose your X. I'm going to choose 57. But you can make it another number. Then you click on the subnet mask and it would fill that in for you. This is a full class B address. Then your default gateway would be 172.16.0.1. That will be your router IP. So you just fill in the top part with the information given for step 15. Just change the X to a number between 50 to 100. Okay, are we okay so far? Any question? Perfect. Good. Should load. Now, don't forget about the bottom, right? Your DNS, we are going to make this physical server the DNS. So your IP that goes here needs to be exactly what you have set above, right? Not the default gateway, but the IP address that you had created. So 172.16.0.57 for me. Make sure that it matches your IP address for the preferred DNS because we are the DNS. This system is going to be the DNS. So, and you don't have an alternate DNS server, so you can leave the second box blank. And then what you do is you're going to click OK. So again, make sure that the DNS matches your IP address. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to reconfigure. We can leave TCP IP version 6 alone for now. We're just going to use version 4. That means that when we created our domain, it's going to create the host A record only. Okay, so once we have that, we would then click close the property. You need to restart your system to see the immediate effect of your IP updated. Otherwise, like you've seen before, right, it's going to take minutes or even multiple, 10, 15 minutes before update. So I'm going to close everything here and then restart. So once you set your IP address, so in your virtual machine, click power button, click power, and then restart. And it's going to ask you, you can keep other options or you can select one of these and then click continue. When you do that, it generates a log because servers don't usually get restarted or shut down. And if you see press any key to boot, just leave it alone and let it load, right? Because if you press any key, then you have to go through the installation process. We don't want that. So just let it load the desktop. Any question? Okay. Next, I would relog back in by clicking input, keyboard, Control-Alt-Delete. So you simply, so here, right, you can log in. So click input, then select keyboard, then select Control-Alt-Delete, just like what you did in the other steps. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add the roles. Microsoft Server refer to each of these server as roles, and it would have specific features like management console and other tool sets for you to be able to control and manage or configure the actual server. So I'm going to log back in. Give it a few seconds for the server manager to start. We can close the prompt and you should see add server role features. on the dashboard, which is the first link on the right side. Once we click that for the wizard, you're going to see that it tells you you need to be an administrator. You need to make sure that you have a static IP address. You need to make sure that it is updated, right? Assuming that we have most of these things already. We don't have the current updates because we're using the trial version, but you can proceed by clicking next. We're gonna keep the role base. So go next. And at this point, you should see your static IP address and your server name. Now, like I said, in the real world, we would want to create a name for your server, right? And you need to configure that when you configure the IP address. We're just going to keep the default name for now. So then you're going to go next. We are going to select the DNS. So I'm at step 21. So just check that box and it's going to prompt you. It's going to add the remote server administration role tools and then the tools that you need. So click add feature. Now you can do multiple roles together, right? You can select DHCP, DNS, and Active Directory together. So realistically, that will be the way to go. But I want to show you that you can do them individually. What if you have separate system for servers? So I can click DNS, and then I'm going to proceed to next for step 23. And it's going to add the .NET framework, which is typical for Windows Server. Then you're just going to proceed, go next. So here, the things to note, you need to use this information for your answer for number 25. Okay, it tells you that DNS server integration with Active Directory domain services automatically replicates DNS data along with Active Directory service data, making it easier to manage. Active Directory domain service requires DNS server to be installed on the network if you're installing a domain controller. You can also install DNS server role using Active Directory domain services installation wizard and selecting Active Directory domain services role. So you have to use ADDS. Okay. So we know that Active Directory domain services is usually integrated with DNS server, and you can install DNS while you're installing Active Directory domain services. So what we're saying is that it goes hand in hand. That's how you're able to manage your domain. So with that, we're gonna go next. Let me reshrink this, and so I need to leverage it so I can see and show you at the same time. And then once you are here, you're going to click install and it's going to take a few minutes. Wait for the bar to be fully blue. You should get a successful message, right? Don't click close until you have that success message. And that way you would have. So installation is just selecting the components for your server and the features to be added to the system. But DNS cannot be fully integrated until you configure it. Until you configure your zone, right? Until you configure your domain. So okay, so it says installation succeeded for the server with the name that you have by default. We're gonna now close. So wait for the bar to be fully blue and you receive the succeeded message, then we can click close. And notice that when this happens, you would have a DNS on your dashboard, but we're gonna administer everything from the tools, which gives us the DNS management console. Okay. Any questions? Do you need any help? Are you okay?
I think that's.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. I'll wait for you there. Okay. So now, after we did the install, we're gonna configure the DNS. Okay. So if you later on, if you want to pursue Microsoft certification, this is one of the certification in the set, right? Is to be able to manage, and whichever the version of the OS that they have currently, then that will be. So DHCP, DNS, and Active Directory is part of the certification set from Microsoft for the administration part, but I would encourage you to also do cloud if you're going to do that, like Hyper-V. Okay, so once we have this, you're going to click on tools, and you would see whichever role that you add, it's going to add here. We saw that before with DHCP, right? We will add DHCP later on. So we are going to click tools. So I'm at 29. So after you've succeeded, you close, then you're going to click on tools. And then you're going to go to the DNS management console. And your server is going to show up as how it's named. So you're going to right click it. Okay. So don't click DNS. Click on the server and then right click it. And then you're going to choose a new zone. So when we have a brand new server, and if we started with the DNS, you are going to configure the zone this way. Click new zone and the wizard will pop up. This is step 30. Then you're going to go next. And because we don't have any zone to start, you are going to, it's going to default to primary zone. Remember what we learned? This is going to be the zone that you can change. Whereas the secondary zone is just a copy of the primary. So it's read only. So you are going to keep the default selection, which is primary zone, and you're going to proceed, click next. Now, when do I make a stub zone? So if you want to do a stub zone, it tells you that it's a copy of the NS record and the SOA, and it's going to tie the host A records to it. If you want a server to contain a stub zone, it cannot be an authoritative server. So, you know, if you can create a stub zone, it's just that server cannot be an authoritative server. So go next. And it's going to default to forward lookup zone. We don't have a domain yet, so we need a forward lookup zone. So we are going to proceed, go next. That's step 33. And here you can give your zone name. So I'm just going to put my full name. But this is when you can name your zone whatever you want that will pertain to the business, right? Or your domain. So let's assume that each of us is going to have our own domain. So we can just put our name in. And then you're going to go next. So what it's going to do is it's going to create the file, right? And it's going to be a DNS file. It's going to have your zone information. Do I have to put the .com? No, I want to indicate that this is for my domain. This is the domain name, right? But you can call it like some company, they would have like Southwest Division for that domain for the Southwest Division, like for California, then they would name it that. So you can name it whatever you would be using it for. And then we're going to go next. And remember what I said, right? At the beginning, we're not running any updates yet because there's no changes yet. So you're going to keep the default, do not allow dynamic updates. You can go in and change this later. You can also select allow both non-secure and secure dynamic updates. we want the first option always, okay? Because once you integrate Active Directory, then it's going to allow you to do a secure update. But for now, we're just going to keep do not allow dynamic updates, and we're going to go next. And it gives you all the summary information on what you have created. It's a forward lookup zone. This is going to be the file that's going to make, and it's your standard primary zone, and you're going to finish. Okay. Now, within that, so once that happens, there's, a little lag time also. You can expand it on the left, or you can click the right side. And when you expand it, you would see that this is the zone that I made, and it is running, right? You notice here that your DNSSEC status is not signed. Why? Because I select do not do update, and I don't have secure updates because there's no changes yet, right? So once you have that modified, then your status is going to show that it is signed, because for secure update, you need encryption, and encryption requires signed key. We'll see that later on. Okay. Any question? Do you need any help? Okay. Let me know if you need help. Okay. Now, we don't need to do reverse yet. Later on, you will see. So, but typically we would set both at once, so that way you don't have to go back and forth. But let's say that down the line you need reverse lookup, you can always go in and make it. And this is where you would make it. So DNS Management Console is in your tool set, your tools manager, and it's going to be up here on the right. Okay, so we can close. We're going to install ADDS, and we're going to install DHCP with it, because it will not work with the updates if you don't. Okay, so we're going to come back to our dashboard, and we're going to select add role. You can do them all together. I just chose to show you that we can do them separately or together. So I just finished part A by configuring my primary zone for my DNS. Then what I'm going to do is, in order to promote this domain to become top level domain and top of the forest, I need Active Directory services. So in your dashboard, you would then begin part B. You're going to click add roles and feature. And this is going to pop up. It says the same thing that you saw before. You need the account. And then what we're going to do is we are going to go next. And we're going to keep it role based. So go next. And we already have the static IP. So we're using the same server. Like I said, right? Single point failure, if you only have one server running multiple services, that's the risk. But for the sake of the lab, you would use this. And many companies, they use DNS with Active Directory together. Usually they go hand in hand. Okay, so gonna go next. And then on the list here, you are for 43. Make sure that we select domain services, not the other stuff, okay? So Active Directory domain services, which is the second from the top. We're going to click add features. And then don't forget about DHCP. Add features. So technically, if you did DHCP a while back, you just then add the AD by itself. But because this is a new server machine that we're using, we have to add DHCP again. So I selected both for 43, and then I'm going to proceed, go next. And here it tells you the things to know. To help ensure that the user can still log into the network in case of server outage, you need to install a minimum of 2 domain controllers on the domain. Active Directory Domain Services, or your ADDS, requires DNS server to be installed on the network. So you cannot have Active Directory Domain Services without a DNS for Windows Server environment. So if you do not have a DNS server installed, you will be prompted to install it together with Active Directory services. So, if you have a question?
Oh, no.
Oh, you just stretching? Okay. So this is gonna help you answer number 45. What does Active Directory services store? Right? It says Active Directory services store information about users, computer, and devices on the network. It is a database that stores subject and objects, which are users, computers, and devices on the network. So you can answer A from looking at this. See you later. And then how many domain controllers are recommended to be on a domain? So it tells you in order to avoid disruption right here, right? Things to note to ensure that the user can still log on in the case you have one outage, you need to have 2 domain controllers on the network. So by practice, since Windows NT, you would have a domain controller and a secondary domain controller, a primary one and a second one. In case the first one goes down, the second one can be a rollover or, to avoid outages. Then we're going to go next. And then it talks about the DHCP. We saw this from before. You need one static IP address and you need to create the subnets for your scope. We're going to go next. And then click install for step 47. You're going to wait a few minutes. This is a little bit longer than the DNS one because it's putting 2 roles and the features for those together. So once you get the succeeded message, you can close and so now you know how to install DNS, right? ADDS, which is Active Directory Domain Name Service. You see a lot of that listing. So when you see ADDS for Windows, that's Active Directory Services. And then your DHCP. And you kind of learn we just saw how to configure your primary zone. So when they ask you like, oh, how do you install DNS? You can say, oh, I've done it in Windows Server 2022, right? I use the dashboard and I add the role and features and I was able to configure the primary zone for my DNS. So if they know that, they know, right? Okay. So everything has succeeded. It tells me I need to configure. Now I can close my install window. And notice that Microsoft give you a notification to start here. If you click it, you can, so I wrote so in the earlier version of Windows, you have to click it. Now they let you click it or you can go into the management console. So at this step, look for the warning sign, which is a little flag icon. It's a yellow exclamation point. And you are going to click it after you're done installing, click it. And you're gonna get a few things. So the more roles you have, the more notification you have, or there's misconfiguration, you're gonna get a warning. So I want to click the first option because I'm gonna configure the Active Directory. So click the warning sign, you're gonna click this. Promote this server to a domain controller. Okay. Now, if I don't click this here, right, I can still go through the tools and Active Directory domain services management console, and I can go through the deployment there. Okay. So when you click the warning notification and you click the first option, which is for Active Directory, it brings you to the wizard. And then I'm at 50. So for your domain name, we need to specify the information. Now, okay, if you're using third-party domain, this is where you're gonna put in the information and also their IP address. But We are making our own internal DNS, okay? So how did I get here? I click the warning and then I click, it should be the first option for you, but because I close it now, it becomes the secondary option. And I click this link. Promote this server. Then I'm going to select the third option, make a new forest. Okay. So the way that they structure it is like a forest, and then you have trees inside your forest. So this is the first server that's going to come up, right? It's going to be on top of the forest. So the new forest. And then you need to specify your domain name here. So when you input your domain, you can put in your full name. .com, I guess. Now, functional is going to be allowing you to work with existing. So what it's doing is it's creating a new forest based on the functional level from the prior version of the server. If you're using older server like 2016, it's going to use 2008. So this allows it to be able to be incorporated with legacy systems because of the OS compatibility. So what you're doing is just going to keep it like this, unless you wanted to change it to an older version. If you have older servers, right, like 2008 still sitting around, you can try to select that. But when they stop supporting some of the older version, Microsoft would announce that, and then it would not support the functional level. So if you have other servers that are functioning in another forest and you try to incorporate it, and it won't be compatible if it's not on the functionality list. And that this would be for like CIS-40C class. Okay. Okay. So here is a recovery password. We're going to use the same thing. But by practice, it should not be the same thing. Right? I just do that for the sake of the lab, so it's easy. Now, it gives you a message that says delegation for this DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone is not found. You can come back and delegate it later, right? You can have a reliable name resolution outside of the domain, so you need to resolve it. You can go to like another external server, etc. So you need to manually create it. Click OK, and then just proceed. So you don't have to delegate it now. So I normally would recommend you install, test everything with your zone, and then deploy. That means that we won't go live. Like you can't connect that server to the rest of the network until you test everything, because if you don't, when you implement the infrastructure, if you just connect it and then people try to log into it, if it fails, then it's gonna be outages for your network for that day. So you need to test it with a client system connecting to it first, and then joining the domain and all of that. Okay, so the net BIOS is gonna default to my domain name, and then we're gonna go next. And this is where it's going to create your log files, because I think that's a question, right? Yeah, so take a screenshot, or it tells you to take a screenshot of your path. The reason why I have you screenshot it is in case you need to go and look at your ADDS logs, you can go to the NTDS thing here. I go over this with my with my forensic class, because sometimes when you need to do forensic on Windows Server, you need to go in there and find information about accounts and things like that. So the NTDS is located in the Windows folder for the local machine. And then the database folder is also located there. Your sys volume contains your sys volume is in the folder. It's located under the Windows as well. Okay, so take a screenshot there and then go next. And it gives you the summary of what you have configured. And then you can also export your PowerShell script so that way you can reinstall that. You reconfigure or set the same configuration on other server systems. So we're just going to go next. So that way you don't have to repeat yourself. Right? It allows that option. And I think that's a new feature with the new OS. So for Windows, it uses C#, right? So likely that the scripts, PowerShell scripts, C. Oh yeah, the settings and the updates is gonna take a while. So this part takes a little bit of time, right? When you install and then it's gonna reboot periodically. So that's going to be a little bit of time. Okay, so yeah, and so it tells you that yes, you have your default domain controller. You need to delegate the DNS server because that's not done yet. And then we need to resolve it to the actual domain name for the public server, and then we are going to then proceed to do the install. So it's just gonna re-summarize some of the warning. And then you are going, so it tells me that the security is named allow cryptography algorithm compatible with Windows NT, prevents weaker encryption. So it notifies me that I should use, you know, better encryption than what was that comes with it with default. So you can change your selection. And as it's building the database for AD for the objects and the subjects within, you are going to see that it might take a little bit of time. Okay. So once it's done, when you come back to the server manager, in the case if it reboots, let it reboot, right? Take a screenshot of it for 60. We still have a lot of time, so should have like close to an hour.
Screenshot of that page.
No, when it reboot, when it comes back to your server manager, it should show Active Directory on there. I'll show you. Yeah, see? You can screenshot this. But after it restarts, so it's going to take a little bit of time to reboot as well because it needs to put in the services. It needs to activate the service when it starts. Just let it go.
Oh, it says my name as the administrator.
Yeah, because now you became a domain, right? You have a domain, and then you have an administrator account for the domain. Your accounts got promoted as well, right? But it still has the local system administrator in the back, right? So the regular administrator is only for that computer. But now the domain administrator can now manage the components in the domain. So if you don't log in as a domain administrator, you cannot manage your domain. If you log in as a regular administrator, it does allow you to have other options. You can only manage the resources on that computer and the local system. So it separates the role, the local system from the actual domain role. Even though it's one physical computer, right? if you apply for network jobs, a lot of the times if they're using Windows environment, you would see these type of services being required. Like ADDS, DNS, DHCP. You got that in the class already. So, you know, when you update your resume, you can put down a section like category, network services, and then list the roles that you know how to set up and configure. And then when they look at that and they ask you questions, right, because they need your skill sets, then you can tell them what you've done. And you can always create a virtual machine you can practice, so that way you can see how that works. So I worked mostly in Windows NT originally, and NT had like its quirks. So you have to do a primary domain controller and set up a secondary domain controller, and then be able to set up. Active Directory didn't really fully be integrated until like the later server version. So what you see is that this is now much more convenient, easier to use. The wizard walks you through everything. You don't have to know like, oh, I have to do this before I do that. But it's definitely like simplify the process for you. Okay, so in the next part, we are going to go back to our DNS. We are going to check. We're gonna now set up your dynamic updates that is secured, right? In CIS-27, I always talk about, oh, make sure you use DNSSEC. And how do you do that, right? You would need to configure your DNS and then go in and reconfigure your dynamic update settings. And Microsoft gives you the wizard, so you can't go wrong with it. It's actually really easy. Then we're also going to create a reverse lookup zone. So that way you can see that record. Okay, if you get to 72, your network ID is 172. I don't know if you watched the other video that I had for, and .16. This is the only part of the IP address that you need to input, because this network, right? It's a class B, and then you just forget about the rest. So you only need to put in the network octet for step 72.
How do I find the civil rules?
Which step are you at?
16.
Okay, so once you boot, input keyboard, let me log in. I'll show. Yeah. Yeah, if you scroll down on the bottom, you would see. See you, sorry. Okay, bye. Hey, did you finish? Are you in the apprenticeship program? Okay.
Going to the
Oh, you're doing the virtual? Are you going to the expo on the 18th? You can't. I think I put it on the extra credit. If you can go. But yeah, do the orientation with her, and then make sure you sign up, because yeah, you should start working in it, you know. And then make sure you sit for certification.
I'll check on the 18th if I can.
Okay. All right. See you. Okay. So once you're here, Brandon, when you get here, you would see this, and you would see your, so the green means good, right? Like it's running. And then if you need to manage it, you can also click on these to be able to see its status. So it gives you the status. So screenshot this. For step 60. Yeah, just let it go.
Okay.
My server did that the other day. I had to like shut it down and then just restart it again. But sometime it does that. If you wait a few, like 3-5 minutes, and if nothing happens, just close it down and then reboot it.
figured out that you had to like, they click the refresh button on the first machine.
Yeah, you can do that too. But mine shows that after I reboot. Oh, you mean like click machine
Oh, no, like, right next to that little flagpoles,
right here?
to the left of it.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, like this, right? Yeah, so yeah, you can do that to update. If you make changes and it doesn't show, you can do that. But reboot usually does the trick. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to go into the DNS management console. So tools, DNS again, but notice that now you have AD, right? Active Directory. So we are going to use this later. So Active Directory uses in computer that allows you to manage access, right? With accounts. This is when you need to change. If you modify something on one server, you can set that to send down to other servers. You can have to set up through sites, and then other things here. So you can have multiple domains, right? Whether the same name or child domain, so you can create trust that way. So it has a lot of different functionality. So we're gonna click on DNS, come back to our console, and we are here. We're gonna do your DNSSEC. So we are going to click on forward lookup zone, and then we are going to select DNSSEC. So for lookup zone, you're here. Okay. Let me see. You can expand it on the left. And then so make sure that you expand it because otherwise it doesn't let you select it. So you can also create different records, as you can see here. So if I want to add like a Microsoft Exchange record that's for email server, I can there, but you can select DNSSEC and then sign zone. This is how you allow secure dynamic updates for your DNS server. And then you're going to go next. We're just going to keep the default settings, but if you read it, it tells you that you can customize your zone signing parameters. If you have specific parameters, you can select that there and navigate, give it a zone name. So we're going to go forward. And it tells you that it uses KSK is an authentication key. It's going to create the private key to sign one and more others for the signing key. So it uses this is the type of key that it's going to create for your update. So that way it's secure.
So like it's a firewall.
No, it's just a way that it protects the communication between the DNS systems when you send updates from one to the next, from zone to zone also. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and you have to add here. Okay. So I forgot to change this, but when you get to this part, you can't click next until you add a key, right? This right here, you're going to click add key, and then you are just going to generate a new key sign, and it's typically using the RSA and SHA-256, and you can also change the option, right? If you want higher bit for encryption, you can go 512. Just keep in mind that encryption use resources, but the higher bit size, just the harder to break the key. But you can, I'm just going to keep it at 256. And then your key length. So notice that this is 256 is the bit size for encryption. And then the key length is the size of your key, right? The longer your key, the harder it is going to be for brute force. So it's going to default to 2048. We can change this to other sizes if you need to. Okay, I'm going to keep the default for the sake of the lab. and then it's gonna store your key in the key storage area. The only account that can access and recover key is your administrator, and at this point, it's the domain administrator. Okay. And your RSET signature, this is going to be valid for 168 hours. You can also modify this value to be lower or higher. If you want it to be limited for validity, you can lower it, etc. Right? You can change that value. That's what I'm saying. And then the rollover frequency is going to be 755 days. We can also modify this value. I'm going to keep that the same and click OK. So you have to add the key here. I'm just gonna, I thought I modified this, but maybe not. Click add key and keep the first selection. Option select, which is generate new key sign. Keep all default settings and proceed by clicking OK. So again, when you get to that part, if you get stuck, call me over, right? Here we have to go next and you have to add the key. So click add. And you can add as many key as you want. So if you have already a pre-generated key, you can select the second option, but I have no key because it's a brand new server. I'm going to generate new signing key. And then I can change the option here if I need to. I keep it the same for the lab and I click OK. And so you can have, so we're going to go next and then next. So this one is for, you have to have 3 ZSK. So that means that you have to have one one sign for one zone and then one for another. So we're gonna do an add, and again, you can make another key and then make sure you select that and then go next. Okay. So yeah, so the KSK is for the first part, and then you need a ZSK for the second part, for the reverse. I'm sorry, for the second zone. It's going to use, so you're going to choose NSEC or NSEC 3, authenticated denial of existence. So this allows you to do random salt and length. If you took CIS-27, I don't know, for my class, I know I talk about salting. So salting allows you to kind of stuff the bit. So think of it like if I have the word key, I want not the word to be shown. So what I can do is I can generate random characters to be able to stuff it. It's kind of like, you want the present not to look like a present, so you would fill it with like papers and wrappings and other things so that way it doesn't look like your present, right? So salting allows you to add bits into your regular length so that way it will be better. It's more secure, right? And so you can increase the value if you want more salt and decrease if you want less, right? I'll keep it the same and go next. And then we're going to do enable automatic update trust anchors with the key rollover, and the key rollovers is 775 days. So this is a new feature on the new server. You don't see this on 2019. 2022 have better security. And then you would see that this is the DS record generation. So, and then the signature inception, it's going to be 1 hour. So you can modify this. This is basically time to live and the period of time that would be for the algorithm for security signing. We'll keep it 3,600 hours, or so 3,600 seconds, and the 12 hours period, but you can reduce or change. And then finish. Okay, so we have to generate the key there, and the key allows us to have secure communication for our updates. That means that when you change your DNS records or configuration, when you need to update one zone to the next zone and across different DNS servers, it's safe. Well, safer. I can't say 100% safe. Okay, so once that happens, we're gonna make a new zone for reverse lookup. So click on it, right click, new zone, really easy. Go next. I'm at step 68. And we're gonna make a primary zone for it because it doesn't have one. Go next. And then we can select, so it tells you to all servers running domain controller in the forest. So it's going to be the second option. It already pre-select that for me, keep that. But if you only want for your domain that is older with 2000 compatibility, that's older system. So keep this the second option, go next. And then we're gonna do IPv4 zone, go next. And here's your network ID. You're only gonna need to put in the first two octet 172.16. And that's it, because it's a class B address. So network, and then go next. And we want now, right? We can select allow secure dynamic updates. I'll be right there. And go next. And finish.
Forward lookup zone, where's the key on?
So just do customize sign character and go next. Yeah.
Okay.
And then go next.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, go back. Oh, you made that already. Yeah, so go. So yeah, it puts that into you go next. And then keep everything the same. I customize it, so I have them manually next. And then finish. Go. Yeah, so it makes those key for you, but actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I had modified because I added another key and it makes me select. You don't have to make it custom. Yeah, it creates those two keys for you as you proceed. But if you add a third key or a second key, it's going to require you to make a custom key. Because you know how I went back a step and I added a second key, then it's gonna make me do the ZSK key. But yeah, so it should help you just make the key on its own. Okay, so now you have also a reverse lookup zone, right? You see that? That allows it to find the domain by the IP address. And the records that it creates, you can see here, start of authority and the name server. The name server NS, as you learn, that it allows it to find the IP address, right? Need help?
No, I'm just,
You okay?
yeah, I just really.
Okay. All right. So we did that. And then you are going to look at the reverse lookup zone. You're going to look at the records. So the records, they look like this on the right side. You click on it. Right. And also you can also add other records. Okay. Notice that on the reverse lookup, you cannot have a host record. You can only use a pointer to point to the host or a CNAME to the host, right? So some zone would only have specific records. And then if you compare that, so I cannot create a host record on a reverse lookup, but on a forward lookup zone, I can make a new host record, right? Because Yeah, so it's able to tie the fully qualified domain name to the IP for the forward, but for the reverse, it uses the pointer to point to the host record. So you have to make a host record in order to make a pointer record, logic. Okay. But in the for lookup zone, also the same. I have the SOA and the NS, but you can also add other records there. Because I don't have a delegation for which one is the parent, that's why you don't see that. But you have to, when you make a host record, you have to put in, you know, the delegated DNS there. Okay. And then you can refer to the notes if you need to, or ask AI or look up online what each of these records mean. Take a screenshot. Then you are going to double click one of the record and look at the time to live. So I'm going to use the NS record. You're going to double click it. And let me see. Yeah, so for the NS record, you have to go to Start Authority tab to see that. Okay. If you go to the SOA, it's going to take you directly there. So if you're using an NS record, you have to go to the Start Authority tab. And SOA usually pertains to like how long, what's the minimum, how long is this record's gonna last? So as you double click SOA, I recommend using that record. But if you use NS, you have to click on the tab where it says SOA. And that allows you to see the default, which is an hour, 60 minutes for Microsoft. That tends to be the case. See you later.
I submitted my I already submitted my lab, but I took the instructions literally and I put your full name as my domain name.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. I took it to literally.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
See you next week.
Okay. And then on the general tab, when you get to these questions, right? Click on the general tab. And this allows you to set this up. So it says allowing non-secure updates is significantly secure vulnerability, right? So you want to make sure that you have secure updates. If you're able to, did you spew in there? Like the account information and one of those? But what about the rest of the question? Yeah, so the email, you need to go to web accounts. So use web accounts or. Okay, call me when you get, so yeah, try to answer because otherwise you have to redo all of those. Okay. So this one, it tells me that it is not an Active Directory integrated zone, right? until I set up domain and trust, it's gonna let me replicate, and in that case, so there are processes for you to be able to configure ADDS before we're able to replicate and make sure that it is an integrated zone for ADDS. So that's why it's grayed out there. Okay. And then what is the setting for the records dynamic updates? Right now, there's none, right? I can only, but I can change that to secure updates, or non-secure and secure update, but I want to keep it at none right now because I only want to use secure updates for this zone. Okay. Oh, I forgot to do the aging one. So you can go to aging, and it says to, for the no refresh, it's gonna last a week. See ya. Okay. So click on tools, and then we're gonna go to the DHCP for the last part. And then on the DHCP management console, we're gonna click on the server, and we're gonna right click and choose. So expand it, right click, right, and choose and right click IPv4 and go to its property. We're gonna click on the DNS tab, which is step 84. And then it's gonna specify like what kind of information that you need for dynamic updates DNS records by the DHCP clients, so you can answer the questions after you go to the DNS tab. It would only update the DNS records if it's requested by the clients for the DHCP. But you can also set it to be always updating. So if you want, you can select the other option, but by default, it would only update when it's requested, and that would reserve bandwidth. And then for the PTR record, the pointer record, it's deleting when the record is discarded. So if it discard host A and PTR when the lease is deleted. Okay, so that should help you answer B for 84. And then on the advanced tab, we can change the detection of conflict, but we won't need to do that for the lab. And for the audit file, this is where you would go. It's under System 32 on the local server Windows folder. And if you want to remember how we talked about how we need to have access management, you can click credential, and then you can set up the account that can generate dynamic updates on the server. Like, you know, like domain administrator is default, but you can assign a specific account for it. This is something that was integrated with the later server, like 2019 and 2022. So we don't need to change that, but I want to show you what that is. Okay. And that was basically the end of part D, but I want to also show you. So we can't really integrate fully dynamic updates for the forward lookup zone until you set this up. And this is part of, you know, So there is your domain right there. So once you complete your DHCP property sheet view to answer the questions, you can shut down your server. Put Windows and power, and we're done. Bye.
Bye.
Not bad. Right. Okay, I'll stop the video.